Hello and welcome to this discussion on your IP or future with Creative First. Our guest today is Ruchi Narain, film director, screenwriter, and producer. She began her career as an assistant director to Sudhir Mishra for the film Is Raat Ki Subah Nahi. From there on, she went to become an associate director, second unit director, and screenplay writer for the film Hazaro Khwahishi Aisi, for which she won a Filmfare Award, Zee Cine Award, and Star Screen Award for Best Story. She was the writer director of the contemporary urban thriller Kal, Yesterday and Tomorrow, for which she won the Ocean Cine Film Festival Critics Award. She has raised financing for this film by making a business plan and bringing together a consortium of 14 investors and holds the IP for it. Her film Guilty on Netflix, starring Kiara Advani, has met with a lot of success and acclaim. Subsequently, she started the production company RAT Films with two partners, which has produced the animation film Hanuman Da Damdar, which she wrote and directed. It was the biggest animation film release in India ever, voiced by some of the biggest stars like Salman Khan. She also made a social experiment film for Paytm on women and financial literacy, which became viral. Currently, she is working on her web series for Disney Plus Hotstar with Ravina Tandon. She has spent her earlier years in Calcutta, Dubai, Sri Lanka, and Muscat, and she currently lives in Mumbai. And thank you, Ruchi. Welcome to this discussion.
Thank you, Lohita.
Tell us about your journey from a writer to a producer.
Well, very early on, when I started working, I realized that what the stories being told are generally controlled by the people who put in the money, and therefore they have the maximum say in the kind of stories being told, which is why also through the history of Indian cinema you see different types of leads, and that evolution, it has a lot to do with where the financing was coming from. And I also realized, as creators, whether you're a writer or a director, it's your story, but you never end up with any ownership of it officially, especially not in India. So, in fact, when I made my first film, which was Kal, for that very reason, I was like, I have to, it's my work. So I need to have ownership of it, which is why I raised the money for it. And I structured the deal, the money raising, in a way that I got to make the film, and it was owned by the consortium. But after a period of time, because I had read that in France this is how laws are, so I structured it so that after a certain number of years, the IP and ownership of the film will come back to me. So technically, it can earn the money for the people who put in the money, but because I've created it, it's my work. So eventually, it should be able to come back to me.
That's
Of
fantastic.
course, yeah. I mean, I could do these things because I wasn't really from here. I wasn't from this industry. So I wasn't schooled in the ways of how the business is. So I was looking at it like an outsider and deriving these things from what I felt was logic. But of course, that's not how things work.
Oh, this is fantastic. So, what really inspired you to do that? I understand, you said that, you wanted to always own the IP, but, how was the discovery of, going and studying different laws or models?
I mean, when you're in the business, these discussions happen around you, and you're also interested because you're putting in all this work. And then, okay, money, of course, has to go back to the people who put in the money. But as a as an artist or a creator, it's your work. So shouldn't your, I don't know, grandchildren have some ownership of it? Was my thinking.
That's great. How has script writing changed with the advent of online curated content platforms?
I would say that they want to make it much more for lack of a better word, mathematical. Because suddenly it's too much of it's too lucrative of a sustained business. Um, and unlike, say, theatrical, where it was still you did all those things, and of course, people spoke about formula and stuff, but it was always a one off thing. But here, platforms are producing uh, a multitude of content. So they need, it's a slate, and they need to come out with things at certain times, and they need to, so because they're doing so much volume also, then they tend to rely a lot on like beat writing. It's a little technical, but it that's what I'm saying. It's a little more mathematical, and what what ends up happening is that things get more compartmentalized. They're writers, then they'll bring in a showrunner, then there'll be a director, then there'll be someone from a platform. So there are more people. So it ends up becoming a little less individual voiced, and a little more of a potpourri.
What motivated you to become an independent film producer?
Ownership of your work. So, like I said, when I realized that actually, as writers and directors, you have no ownership of your work. The only way to have ownership of your work is to be a producer, which is why in our country, every filmmaker ends up becoming a producer, mainly because you just want to own your work. That's it. And so that was a natural, if our laws, for example, were structured more in favor of sharing ownership or giving ownership after a certain amount of point to the creator, then maybe I wouldn't be a producer.
Yes, it's subject to copyright terms. Yes,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
What is the importance of registering your script?
Um, it is the most important thing, not just for the writer, but even for the person who you're giving the script to read. Like I always say that don't give me a script unless it's registered. Because even I don't want that 2 years later I make a film and someone says, oh, but I made her read something like this, and now she's made a film on it. So I can always say, dude, this was my script, this was registered in this year, your script is registered in this year. So obviously, I have not taken anything from you. And more importantly, when you write something, this basically there's a paucity of good ideas always. So and people who are more powerful than you, it's I mean it's I think it happens to every writer, unfortunately, in their writing lifetime, including me, that if there's someone who's more powerful than you at a certain time and you share something with them, they take it. I mean, it definitely happens
Well
once.
said.
It
Yes.
happens once to every writer.
Yes. Yes. And if I may add, the problem is the law does not make it mandatory for the script to be or copyright to be registered. But for good order, like you said, more and more people should do that.
Yeah, they should. Because there's always people who say, oh, there are only 7 stories in the world, but there's not. I mean, there are many stories, and it's also the way you tell a story. And even that is something which makes the story unique.
What is your experience as a producer, while producing a film for an online curated content platform from a creative perspective?
I mean, I directed Guilty for Dharmatic. So I didn't produce that film, but we've produced another show called 100. And of course, we're producing the show that I'm currently working on. Um, so my experience has been quite varied. because I think I was one of the first people, the first set of people who did stuff for OTT. I know I was definitely the first person who was making a show and doing a film for OTT. And so in those days of nascent OTT years, there was much more, I would say, trust in the filmmakers' vision, because they wanted filmmakers to come and make stuff because they wanted to differentiate themselves from television. But what I'm seeing now is that at the end of the day, it's the game of numbers. So now all OTTs are looking at widening their audience base. So though a lot of OTTs are still looking for interesting stories and well-made content, there's also a big push by all OTTs to make more massy content, which basically means you're going a little more again towards the television side.
Do you think there's a mass audience today for scripts with a woman protagonist?
Thanks to OTT, and frankly, this is why I just love OTT. Whatever changes and metamorphoses it'll go through, the fact is, it democratizes content. So there is space for every kind of content. And this is what I've always felt, that there should never be only one kind of story being told, because there's so many amazing things to talk about, and there's so many different ways in which to deliver it, and no one thing should be considered right or the best. You should be able to have a variety, so that there's something for everyone. And even if you're normally a person who likes a certain kind of content, it doesn't mean you're unidimensional. Sometimes you might like to see something else. And that option is what OTT makes available to you. So, in that way, of course, now when you say mass audience and mass this, I don't know now what do we only want to make
So when if I may,
are catering to everyone, or
when I said mass audience, it could be, popular among masses. I'm saying something that could be equivalent to give competition to a tentpole, which there are so many women-oriented movies that have done that. But I want your perspective from a producer's. You're a producer, so from your perspective.
I feel we're a little bit further than, say, the West. For that, if you think about it, it was just, what was it, 4 years ago, where they made Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? So it is, we are still a little bit behind, but OTT is definitely making sure we close that gap.
Sure. So, what are the risks that you would, an independent producer should be prepared to take? Because not everybody, possibly would want to become an independent producer. So, are there risks? Are there any challenges?
It's the biggest risks. The biggest risk takers in this business are the producers, because they are the ones who are putting everything on the line, because they are the one, they are even paying the writer. Yeah. They are even paying the director. And that project can take any amount of time. Only after it comes to fruition will they see any returns.
Yes.
So the total risk is the producers. It's not that there any risks. The only person who's taking a risk is the producer.
Tell us more about your film Paytm.
That was just a wonderful experience. A very cool creative director of an agency had called me, Anupama Ramaswamy, and she wanted to do something for Women's Day. which I usually shy away from because I just find it's very lip service because it's the 8th of March and then everyone forgets about it. But she said, let's do something about women and how they deal with finance and how people don't let them deal with their own finance. They always ask for the man to do it. So because we were discussing it, I was like, but you know what? If I'm truthful about it, I myself don't want to do it. Like, I don't do it because we've actually been taught, our generation has been taught, all the girls, we've been taught to earn money, but we've not been conditioned to then look after our money. So we have to earn, and then we'll give our bank accounts, controlling our bank accounts to our fathers, brothers, husbands, boyfriends, even best friends, but they'll be male. You know what I mean? So I said, actually, the problem is is that we're not conditioned like that. So I said, we should do it on that, and I'm so sure that I'm not the only one, and it's like a phenomenon that let's do it as a experiment. So I won't tell anyone. I'll just call people, but I'm not going to tell them what it's about. So they won't be prepped for it. And then we'll just throw questions at them and then see how they react. So I purposely called a lot of very empowered women, successful women, feminists, very progressive men, some traditional people, but an array of people, but who would you would expect, agar koi karta hai to ye log karte honge. And when they came, so a lot of the women were like, "Oh, it's for Women's Day. We're gonna show them and stuff." And then I started asking the questions, and you could see those were genuine expressions on their faces. That first they were all neck and neck with other questions, but the minute I started asking them about how they manage their money and financial literacy, suddenly the women were going back and the men were like, yeah, and going forward. And then they're also looking back, where are these girls going? And the women were just like, oh my God, they suddenly realized they had moved to the back. And I think because nobody thought about it and nobody really expected to see this truth about themselves, the film turned out so good because we had genuine expressions. And then straight after that, I interviewed them, and they were all in shock, including the men, because we never really discussed this. Like I said, we've all been trained to earn money, not to then look after it. So what was so amazing about it, I remember delivering the film on a Saturday night, and by late night on WhatsApp, someone had sent it back to me. So that is how I had thought, okay, I'll post it on Monday morning at 10 a.m. But by Sunday night, it was viral. Like Monday morning, it was on all my groups before I could send it to anybody. So it was just so fantastic to be in that position where something you've done has actually genuinely gone viral and affected so many people. It created so much conversation. I mean, even like Faye D'Souza does a segment now on her news thing, and it's become a topic, and people are consciously talking about it and thinking about it. And it was really amazing to be part of something which actually affected some kind of change.
Congratulations. And what's really good is it empowered. I'm sure it would have empowered a lot of women to really think, hey, this is what I've been doing all these years. Like, why? Right? Oh, that's great. What is your message to young film producers, especially women aspiring to be in this industry?
This is the best time to be able to get people to hear your voice. So really, there's no excuses. Don't Of course, if you want something, there's always going to be pros and cons, but the opportunities are there now. So you have to grab them. And as you become more confident and better at your art, you will also be able to have more negotiating power. So, my advice to young creators and producers would be it's important to get your work out there. That is what will give you leverage to negotiate better terms as you go along. Don't try and create an idealistic situation from the beginning. Look at the things more as opportunities. Of course, that doesn't mean you let people walk over you, but look at the opportunity you're being afforded, because right now is a really great time. And if you make good content, you automatically have leverage.
Thank you so much, Ruchi, for sharing your thoughts with us. It's been a great discussion, and I'm sure our audiences will learn a lot from what we just discussed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lohita. Thank you. It was lovely to be on Creative First with all of you guys. And good luck with everything. And good
Thank
luck
you.
to everyone watching. Looking forward to see what all you have to offer.
Thank you.